World End Syndrome is a visual novel full of romance, murder, and the undead. But for a story that tells the legend about the Yomabito resurrecting once every 100 years to seek revenge upon the living, they sure do brush off a high schooler's death pretty casually. And yet, that seemingly unimportant romantic beach episode might be what saves us in the very end. So what exactly happens here in this supernatural murder mystery x summer vacation slice of life dating simulator? Hi, my name is August and this is World End Syndrome. We begin with our nameless main character traveling to the coastal town of Mihate to escape his past, to start a new life after blaming himself for his older sister's death. And things are looking up for him. He meets lots of new people, he becomes part of the mystery club, and he spends his time accompanying his new friends. Too bad it leads to the worst possible ending because the game kills him for being so goddamn boring. Even for a literal self-insert protagonist, our main character is incredibly dull. He simply goes with the flow. He's extremely passive and he plainly reacts to the people around him, only acting out of obligation, because everybody else strings him along for the ride. That said, he does make somewhat of a notable impression. He's got this strange habit of speaking depressing monologues. Faced with the immensity of the body of water, I'm reminded of my own powerlessness. My powerlessness is a representation of nature. It just comes off as pretentious, as there's often no real plot context to back it up, and it ends up sounding like some emo loner kid who picked up one too many philosophy books and is the primary worry of his guidance counselor. Now, the quiet passive protagonist isn't usually a bad approach, it's just that alone, he's just not memorable. In order to make this work, there has to be someone this spice up his life or a situation where he's forced to act. Only at the story's most critical moments does the latter actually happen. And don't get me wrong, there are some genuinely nice moments with traces of tragedy the more you look into it. It's just that considering that most of the visual novel is happy-go-lucky summer slice of life, it just doesn't feel like actual progress is being made. Like, did we forget that someone just died? Ironically enough, the guy best friend Kensuke is the most extreme example of the former. The problem is that he's an insensitive, woman-obsessed buffoon that's practically a middle schooler. He's so bad that he needed a laugh track in his introduction to show how much of a clown he is. I did my absolute best to avoid running into him, but he forced me to tag along anyway, and I hated every single moment his mouth opened. Now, throughout the day, you'll visit areas in the town, and depending on your location, will allow you to increase your affinity with the girls. It's a lot like Persona's social links, except a lot less rewarding or engaging, because as it turns out, most of this doesn't actually matter. Aside from having enough affinity points with Mayumi to unlock her route, the other content, the missions and collectibles, are simply cosmetic world lore, which meant I had to go along with this idiot's antics for more than was actually necessary. The actual events you should watch out for are the fully voiced ones that have plot relevant details. And in one particular route, that was spending my summer vacation being an errand boy for a slick-up rich girl who didn't know what a beef bowl was. Saya Kamishiro nicely fits into her very specific stereotype, haughty rich girl. So in this summer vacation, it's up to our main character to really teach her the ways of the commoner. And by that, I mean unenthusiastically follow her around all day and listen to her complain about her issues, in the classic melting the ice princess fashion. World End Syndrome plays things by the book, with all those familiar stereotypical anime rom-com tropes. It's only after the visual novel spends the first 2 hours dragging its plot that it allows for actual depth in its character routes. And surprisingly enough, it actually does a fine enough job for the summertime adolescent romance story. Not amazing, but pretty competent. There's proper backstory and build-up that allows you to get to know these girls and their personal troubles. Completely normal for a romance visual novel. But then you also remember, people died, and there may be a murderer on the loose.
The perp is probably in Inaba.
Ace Detective.
Case closed. Let's get drunk.
And that's what Yukino and Muse routes are for. You just need to get there first. World End Syndrome has an enforced playing order. Saya and Hanako's routes are unlocked at the start, Mayumi has to be unlocked, and Yukino and Muse routes follow shortly after. A fun hack to abuse is that you can actually stock up on auras by reloading your save file. The affection meter is persistent throughout your playthroughs, so you can easily unlock Mayumi's route after you finish Saya and Hanako's. Of course, that is if you know where she is on the map and not mysteriously disappearing out of nowhere. But once you get through those 3 routes, you'll get to the best part of the visual novel, for I would like to introduce to you my favorite character, because not only does she carry the mystery all on her back, more so than the actual detective in the story, but her personality from the moment you meet her is just that super attractive. Yukino Otonashi is quite the curious and energetic individual. She really is out here shining in the spotlight in her search for the truth behind the mysteries, with the main character being her tag-along Watson, of course. The perfect charismatic girl to pair with our quiet, brooding main character. Yukino's route is where the real meat of the story is. Things get pretty heated as more developments are made, and by the end, you'll get that nice, satisfying "it's you" moment, where even for someone like me who's absolutely terrible at solving mysteries and puzzles, it's pretty easy to figure out who the culprit is. And yet, Yukino's route did not prepare me for the tragedy awaiting in Mew's route onward. Ironically enough, because Mew is somehow even quieter and emotionless than our main character, he actually stands out more, compared to the other girls where they pull him along and Yukino dragging him out in accordance to her whims. He actively has to pursue Mew. You can really feel the love in the air. Mew's route onward is the culmination of all the remaining mysteries and world end syndrome. It even throws in a couple of extra twists for good measure before tying everything up. It really is where the heart of the story lies. World End Syndrome is placed in an interesting position, being both a romance pseudo-dating simulator and a supernatural murder mystery. It's certainly fine at being the former. The mysterious folklore legend serves as a fine backdrop for our high school cast, enjoying the summertime as an adolescent youth and all that fun stuff. It even goes for those emotional moments of overcoming personal adversity, and how that all ties in together thematically in the end is pretty alright. The problem is that if you're really looking for a serious murder mystery, you're going to end up wasting your time here. Everything from the repetitive dialogue and gameplay, unimportant side content, and the fact that the true mystery is back-ended into the final two routes of the game is a severe downside that will make you endure to get there. And yet, as I look back on this game after completing its story, I enjoyed it as I was playing it, and I would be down to read more when its eventual sequel comes out. World End Syndrome gets a 3 out of 5 from me. Follow me on Twitter for more of my thoughts about visual novels, and I'll see you on the next video.